This is the second half of 1.6 on page 64. We are doing 23 through 41 on skip question 35. On problem 23, you are given the first term in the sequence, which is 256, and you're given the second term, which is negative 64. You're asked to do two things, actually three things. You're asked to find the recursive formula, the explicit formula, and then find the fifth term. Okay? So, first of all, what is the recursive formula? The recursive formula, you state the initial term, or initial condition. And then to find any term in the sequence, you take the previous term and you multiply it by the R value. Well, we don't know the R value, we have to generate it. How do you get the R value? You take the second term and divide it by the first. So what is negative 64 over 256? It is negative 1/4. So this is your R value. So you're going to multiply the previous term times negative 1/4. The explicit formula is the first term times the R value to the n minus 1 power. And now to find the fifth term. We did the sixth in the previous problems, 256 times negative 1/4 to the 5 minus 1 power. And you should get, for this problem, this answer, 1. The answer is 1. U sub 5 is 1. 25. Same thing. Although this one, they give you the second term, which is 4, and the fifth term, which is 1 over 16. Now, in the notes, I explained when they don't give you two consecutive terms, what to look at this. U sub n is U sub 1 times R to the n minus 1 power. These two subscripts are subtracted. So we need the R value and we need U sub 1. So if you use the fifth term here, if we say U sub 5 is equal to U sub 2 times R, what power would we have? You do 5 minus 2, which is 3. These would be subtracted. So now replace U sub 5 for 1/16. U sub 2 is 4. And we're going to try to find out what R is. So if you're going to solve this using your algebra, you're going to want to get this R by itself. So I'd multiply or divide both sides by 4 or multiply by 1/4. So 1/4, and then multiply this by 1/4. And you get 1 over 64 is equal to R cubed. And then take the cube root of both sides. And you're going to get 1/4. R is 1/4. So, the recursive formula would be U sub 1, state the first term. Actually, you're going to have to find the first term. The first term, you're going to, instead of multiplying by 1/4, you're going to divide this by 4. So 16 would be your first term. Because if you want to think of it this way, if 16 is your first term and your R value is 1/4, you multiply this by 1/4 to get your second term. So our first term is 16, and if you want to find any term, if it's recursive, you take the previous term and you multiply it by the R value. R, we said, is 1/4. Explicit, U sub n, it's the first term, which we said is 16, times the R value, 1/4 to the n minus 1. And then how do you find the fifth term? 16 times 1/4 to the 5 minus 1 power. And that would be U sub 5 is 1/16. 27. They give you the fourth term is negative 4/5, and they give you the r value is 2/5. So we do not know the first term. So what you could do is you're going to use this formula, u sub 4 is equal to the first term times r, and this would be a 3, because it's n minus 1 right here. Well, the fourth term is negative 4/5. We don't know the first term, this is our unknown, and our r value is 2/5. We're going to cube that. And 2/5 cubed is 8/125. So now, how do you get rid of this? You're going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal. And simplify this. This is 1. And 4 goes into 8 2 times, and 5 goes into this. We've got 5 times. And so we have, let's see, 125 divided by 5. This should be 25. My bad. So we have negative 25. If you multiply across, you have negative 25 over 2. And so your two formulas would be for the recursive, you're going to state your first term, which is we just found it, negative 25 over 2. And whatever term you want, it's the previous term times the r value, which was given to us. And to find any other term, you take the first term, which is negative 25 halves, and multiply it by the r value to the n minus 1. So if you're finding the fifth term, we have negative 25 over 2 times 2/5 to the 5 minus 1 power. And that answer should come out to be negative 8/125. Next, question 29. Question 29. You are asked to find the sum of the first 7, and the formula is 2 to the n power. So the formula is, if it's geometric, it's the first term times 1 minus r to the n power over 1 minus r. We do not know the first term. To find that, you plug this number, this bottom number, into this little equation, and you get 2 to the first power, which is 2. So that's your first term. Now to get the r value, you put a 2 in. You go next in line is 2. 2 to the second is 4. If you wanted to do the next one, 2 to the third is 8. So how are you going from 2 to 4, 4 to 8, and multiplying it by 2? So r is 2. So 1 minus 2, and you're adding 7 of these terms together over 1 minus 2. So when you do this, you should get 254 is your sum. 31. You are asked to add 1 to 9, and the formula is negative 1/3 to the n power. So we are adding okay, so what we have to do is use this formula, a sub 1, 1 minus r to the n power over 1 minus r. To find the first term, you're going to plug 1 in here, negative 1/3 to the first power, which is negative 1/3, 1 minus, now you're gonna plug a 2 in, so negative 1/3 squared is 1/9. So this is negative 1/3. If you wanted the third term, negative 1/3 to the third is negative 1/27. So how are you going from this term to that term? You're multiplying by negative 1/3. So negative 1/3 is your R value. Now we're adding 9 terms. Now that's the hard part. Well, actually, that's not the hard part. The hard part is getting the right answer in your calculator. And you should get negative 4,921 over 19,683. Next, question 33 is another summation. And as you notice, they're getting more and more difficult. We have the summation of question 33, the summation of, now they use a J. It's the same as an N. Oops, I'm sorry. So it's, you can use an N, you can use, some use an I. They used a J for this problem. J equals 1 to 6. And then we have 4 times 3/2 to the J minus 1 power. These two letters need to match. So we're summing, we need to find the first term, we need to find the R value, and we need the N value. So the N value is the easy, we're adding 6 terms. Subtract these 2 and add 1. How do you get the first term that you're adding? You take this bottom number and you plug it in here. Now this is going to be easy because 1 minus 1 is 0, and anything to the 0 power is 1, and 1 times 4 is 4. So your first term is 4. Now let's get the second term. If we put a 2 here, we have 2 minus 1 is 1. So this is 3 halves. 3 halves times 4 is 6. So if this is the second term, and that's the first term, how are you going? 3/2 is your R ratio. So 6/4 is 3/2. And that's what that is right there. That's your R value. So here we go. A sub 1 is 1 minus R to the N power over 1 minus R. So the first term is 4. 1 minus our ratio is 3 halves. We're adding 6 terms together over 1 minus R, which is 3 halves. When you do this problem, you should get 6/5 over 8. That is your answer. 665 over 8. If you got the decimal answer, it would be 83.125. Question 35. You can skip. We didn't have to do 35. 37. It says a ball is dropped from a height of 8 feet. Okay, so let's draw a picture. It says a ball is dropped from a height of 8 feet. On each bounce, it rises to half its previous height. When the ball hits the ground for the 7th time, how far has the ball traveled? So on the 7th bounce, how far has it traveled? So let's do this as a summation problem. If the ball dropped 8 feet first, so we did a problem similar to this in class using just different numbers. It's 8 feet. It's saying when it drops, it's going to drop half the distance. So what's half of 8 is 4. So this is our first bounce. gonna go 4. I'm sorry, this is not 4. This and this are 4. This is, we're gonna call this our 8 feet. This is 8. So when it bounces and then it's going half this height, 4 and 4. And then on the second bounce, it's gonna go half, so 2 and 2. And then on the third bounce, it's gonna go half this, 1 and 1. So we wanna look at what is, if we added these up, you get 8. That's gonna be your first term in the sequence. If you add these 2 up, you get 4 and 2 and so forth. So we wanna sum up the distance from here to the 7th bounce, okay? So what is our equation? A sub 1, 1 minus r to the n power over 1 minus r. Our first term in the sequence is 8. And the ratio is 1/2. It's dropping, it's bouncing half the previous height. Now how many terms are we adding together? Well, on the 7th bounce, it's 6 terms. So you're going to do this problem, and you're going to get for an answer 15.75, but you have to forget to add the initial drop of 8 feet. So the answer is 23.75. $39. It says, if you are paid a salary of 1 cent on the first day of March, 2 cents on the second day, and your salary continues to double each day, how much will you have earned on the month of March? So in other words, you're summing all of those numbers up to the end of March, and there's 31 days. So this equation is the summation one. Again, you're going to use the summation, 39. Okay, we're making, on the first day, U sub 1, it's 1 cent. On the second day, 2 cents. On the third day, 3 cents. We want to continue this pattern up to 31 days. We don't need to know how much you're making on the 31st day. We can use our formula for that, but we want to add these up. And remember, we're in pennies, so you move your decimal 2 places over to turn it into dollars. So we want to sum up. We want to sum up n equals 1 to 31. That's what we're doing. So the first term times 1 minus r to the n power over 1 minus r. The first term in this sequence is 1. Whoops, this is a times. 1 times 1 minus the ratio, it's what's happening? It's doubling. So 2 is your ratio. And how many terms are we adding together? 31 over 1 minus 2. So when you do this crazy problem, you're going to get, for an answer, 2, 1, 4, 7, 4, 8, 3, 6, 4, 8. That's what this number is, but this is in cents. So you're going to move your decimal 2 places over, and that's the dollars that you would have made. You add it all up. 41. A car that sold for $8,000 depreciates in value 25% each year. What is it worth after 5 years? So this one is just a simple explicit problem for you to look at, 41. You have an initial amount of $8,000. Okay, it is depreciating 25%. So if it's depreciating 25%, it's worth 75%. And that's your R value. So your formula looks like this. U sub n is, it's the first term times the R value to the n minus 1. So you do 8,000 times 0.75, and we want to know what is it worth after 5 years, so it'd be 5 minus 1. Actually, it would be 5. It'd be 6 minus 1, so 5 would be your power. And you're going to do this math, and you're going to get, for an answer, $1,898.44. We are done.